Hi everyone, Mike again with MEG Motors. Today we're going to be looking at this Weedeater brand 2-cycle edger. It's a PE550, stands for Power Edge. Bought it off of Facebook Marketplace. I actually got two of them for $20, so I have $10 in each one. We're going to look at this one and see what's going on with it and why it doesn't run, and see what we got to do to make it run. First thing I like to do, like with all of these, an engine needs three things to run. It needs spark at the right time, and it needs compression, and it needs fuel in approximately the right ratio, about 14.7 to 1. I pulled it through with the starter. It feels like it has compression. So I'm going to pull the air filter cover. We're going to spray some carburetor cleaner in there and see if we can get it to at least attempt to start. That'll tell us about a spark and whether it's sparking and if it's sparking at the right time and if there truly is enough compression. So let's pull the air filter cover off. Right away. Let's see what... Let's have an air filter in it. That's a good sign. Alright, so I'm going to spray a little spray. Put it down on the ground in a minute. The switch is on, the choke is off. I'm going to go full throttle. So we heard it at least kick off, so that tells us that we have enough compression for it to run, and it's sparking at the right time. I've looked it over a little bit already, and like most of these, the fuel lines are really hard, so we definitely got to put some fuel lines on it. I looked in the tank, and the fuel line to the fuel pickup is actually broken off. So we're going to have to put some fuel lines on it, and we'll open up the carburetor. It's got a primer bulb on it, and the primer is very hard, very rigid. So we're going to have to put a new primer on it for sure, and we'll open up the carburetor and see what else might be going on in there, and then we'll see if we can make it run. So let me reset the camera and we'll get started. Okay, so to get started on this one, we're going to pull the carburetor off of it. Like I said, the primer is very hard. The fuel lines actually are just breaking off as soon as I touch them, so we definitely need some fuel lines on this one. So we got two screws. Hold this carburetor on. Work the fuel throttle cable out of there. All right, here's our carburetor. This one is a Walbro. I can tell by the number on it. Walbro WT. Alright, so let me reset the camera, and we'll open this carburetor up and see what we're going to have to do to get it fixed up and ready to go. Alright, so let's get started on this carburetor. Like I said, this is a Walbro. Yeah, there's the name. It says it right there, Walbro. And it's a WT. So if you've seen any of my videos, you know I'm a big fan of these carburetors. I really like them. They're relatively simple, and they do a lot of stuff with very few moving parts. So we got a fuel pump on this side, and then we got a metering chamber on this side. And so this side's going to pump the fuel out of the tank, and then through a passage in the middle of the carburetor, it's going to let fuel over here to the metering chamber, where it's going to be provided to the engine to run. So we're going to take the fuel pump side apart first. Take that off. All right, so I see some issues there already. So yeah, on this side, this is the fuel pump diaphragm, and this is I like these kind. They're a plastic diaphragm, so they're not impacted by the fuel like some of the other fuel pump diaphragms are. So what we're looking for on this side is this opening right here. This membrane needs to be not broken, split, or no holes. And then these two flaps need to move free and easy, and these move very free and easy. So that's a good sign. So when the engine runs, A two-cycle engine will provide alternating pressure and vacuum in the crankcase, and that is routed up through the intake manifold into the carburetor, and it'll actually come into this passage and go on the back side of this diaphragm. And so as we provide vacuum and pressure on the back side of this diaphragm, it'll pump back and forth, and the carburetor uses that to pump fuel from the tank into the carburetor. And so that all looks pretty good. We're gonna have to, let me see if I can get this cover right now. Yeah, this primer bulb has gotten very, very hard. So we'll put a new one of those on there. And then we're gonna pop this little piece of rubber right here out of this carburetor as well. This is another one-way valve. Sometimes they're called duck bills. You just gently pull that out. Called duck bills because you can see on this side, looks a little bit like a duck's bill. And so there's actually a hole in the end of that opens when you press it. So the way this works is it will allow fuel to be pushed down through the center and out through that opening, but the fuel won't come back. So it works as a one-way valve. And so we need to make sure that this opening right here is not plugged up. And so I'm going to spray a little carburetor cleaner through it and see. All right, so that's good. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that that was still open. As bad as the fuel lines are on this one, sometimes these passages will get plugged up. So it looks okay, so I'm gonna let that dry for a little bit before I put this back in. All right, and I pulled there's our right primer bulb. So I have the new primer bulb for it. All right, so let's put all that aside and we'll open up the metering chamber. Most of the time those will pop off with very little pressure, but this one seems to be somewhat stuck. There it goes. All right, so here's our metering chamber. What we're looking for here is this diaphragm should be very soft and flexible. And this one's not too bad. I've definitely felt worse, but it does have a little bit of rigidity to it. So we're going to go ahead and replace it. This is actually two pieces. It's a gasket and a diaphragm. Let me see if I can separate those. Yeah, so we have these two pieces. All right, and then we have our metering lever here and our needle. And so when so on this side, this is the fuel pump side again, and so when the fuel pump pumps fuel, it's going to present it right here in this chamber, and there's a screen in here, and then this screen is right underneath the needle on this side. And so when the needle unseats, fuel, which will be under pressure from the fuel pump side, will flow through this screen and through this passage and out through the needle to fill the metering chamber. And then as the engine uses fuel out of the metering chamber, it will pull this metering diaphragm down, which will hit the lever and unseat the needle to let more fuel in. And then as it fills with fuel, the diaphragm will raise back up, the metering lever will raise up, and the needle will seat to stop the fuel from flowing into the metering chamber. So it keeps the metering chamber full without too much pressure, and make sure that there's fuel available to the engine at all times. So we're going to pull the needle out of here right quick, just to see what it looks like, make sure it's okay. So you want to hold your thumb over the lever when you take this screw out, because it is spring loaded. There's a small spring under there, and it'll go flying if you're not careful. All right, so here's our needle. Hopefully you can see that. Doesn't look too bad. I think it's got a little bit of junk on it. And we're going to clean it up a little bit. I like to spray a little carb cleaner in the corner of a rag, and then I'll just spin the needle in there and see what comes off. So you see we get dirt off like that. Just keep doing that until it doesn't, or no more dirt comes off. And then dry it off. Sometimes the carburetor cleaner can react with some of the rubber parts. So yeah, it looks much better. That's good. And so this screen in here looks like it's seen better days. I'm not sure if you can see that. I know it's hard to tell, but there's a lot of dirt on it, and it doesn't seal up against the side of the opening like it should, so fuel can get around it actually. So we're going to pull that screen out of there and put in a new one, and then we'll put this carburetor back together. Let's get in here. I'm going to get in here with a pick. Usually that just walks right out. Yep, there it goes. It definitely looks like it's seen better days. There's a little bit of dirt down there too. So I'm going to clean this up, and then I'll gather some parts and we'll put this back together. Alright, so we're going to start putting this carburetor back together, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put in this new screen. I remember our old screen was kind of compromised, and so these screens can be a little bit difficult to put in. They're just bent up on the edge, and you have to fit them down into the opening and get them in there square and get them to stick. And so a lot of times I'll use just a 1/4" drive socket and put that on the screen, and you can a lot of times just push it right into place. Yeah, just like that. So it goes in nice and square and looks good. All right. So we're going to reuse the fuel pump diaphragm and membrane. I don't think there's anything wrong with them. So we're just going to reuse those and put that back together. I've already put a new primer bulb in the cap. Oh, we got to put our duck bill back in. And so to put this back in, we're just going to line it up in the middle, kind of rotate it as we push down, and it'll go right in and stick in place when it's all the way down. Just like that. Then we'll put this piece on. There are 2 screws. Alright, and then on this side we're going to put our needle in. We're going to put our spring in. We'll put our metering lever on. And then we'll put the right screw in, make sure I have the right screw. I think I do. Alright, we're gonna check. So this is a, like I said, when you look on the side, you can see that this is a WT carburetor. And I have this gauge from Walbro, and it will have all the different carburetor makes that are available. And so you look for one that matches here. WT is right here. And so we're going to hold this without the gasket up against the carburetor and confirm that the lever just barely touches the gauge, which it does. So we're good on that. Now we'll put our gasket on. This is our new diaphragm. And in place. Cover back on. Alright, that gets us back together. Now we're going to put this back on the edger and work on some fuel lines. Alright, so we're going to work on putting some fuel lines on this one. I pulled the old fuel lines out already, and they came out in pieces. They just fell apart every time I touched them. So I got them all out. I'll show you on this one. Hopefully we can see in here. There's two holes in the bottom of the tank. There's a big hole and a little hole. So we need two different size fuel lines. And we're going to start pulling the little one in first. So I've taken the right size fuel line and I've cut a taper on the end there, and we know our tool. We have a tool to pull the lines in, but it doesn't fit on these little small holes. So I'm gonna have to push this one in by hand, and luckily it went in pretty easy. All right, so it goes in there and then it runs down a passage right here. Thread it down through there. So it comes out the back of the edger. That's our first fuel line in. All right, so for our second fuel line, I pulled this next size. It's a bigger fuel line. We're going to use this pull tool to pull that line in. It's got a hook on one end, you can see. I'm going to feed that down in through the tank. Then we'll cut our taper on the end of our hose. We'll pre-poke a hole in it. And we'll get that up on our tool. And we're going to lube the line up a little bit to help it pull in through the tank. We'll see if we can pull this line in. There we go. And we can cut that off. And I pulled the pickup out of the tank and it was in really bad shape, so I've got a new one here. I'm going to put that on this line right here. I'm going to feed that back into the tank. Make sure that it goes down where it should. All right, that feels fine. And we're going to have to thread this line. Probably should have threaded that through before I pulled it up, but I'm going to thread this line back through the body of the edger. on the back side, there's another passage. Get them over to the other side where the carburetor goes. All right, and then this little piece snapped into the side of the edger to hold everything in place, just to kind of keep the lines nice and tidy. All right, so let's put the carburetor back on, and then we can trim these lines to their final size, and we'll see if we can get it to start. All right, so we got to put see, this goes on this way. Get our throttle cable in, like that. All right, so that gets our carburetor back on. So now we just need to hook up the fuel lines. So this should be the return line. So that's going to be the small one. I'm going to clip that off right there. And then this should be our fuel pickup. I'm going to clip that off right there. All right, so we are ready to put some fuel in it and test our primer and then see if we can make it run. All right, so I've already run a primer test and we can see that fuel is pumping through the lines just like it should, so that's a good sign. This carburetor, if you look at the adjustment screws, this is one of those odd shaped ones that we've seen before. In this case it's a splined, and so we need this tool right here. It has a splined end on it that fits those screws to adjust. So we're gonna remount the camera and then we'll give this a try and see if we can get it to start. Alright, so our switch is on, our choke is on full, and we're gonna see if we can get this thing to start. Trying. I'm going to go back to half choke. Not yet. All right, I'm going to go get some carburetor cleaner. I'm going to give it a small prime and see if that helps it start. It doesn't sound good, but I'm gonna open the screws, the low and the high speed, and we'll see if we can get it to run. All right, so that sounds pretty good. The screws were just way out of adjustment. They were both too lean. I opened them both up and it seems to have fired up, started running pretty good. Sounds good, starts easy. The blade seems to be working okay. So I think this one's fixed. So I hope you liked the video. If you did, please like, subscribe, and check my playlist for other videos on small engine repair. And we'll see you on the next one.